When people look at it, it looks crazy. That's a very natural thing. Sometimes when we look at it. When people look at it, it looks crazy. That's a very natural thing. Sometimes when we look at it, it looks crazy. It is the result of reasoned engineering thought, but it still looks crazy. From the top of the atmosphere down to the surface, it takes us 7 minutes. It takes 14 minutes or so for the signal from the spacecraft to make it to Earth. That's how far Mars is away from us. So when we first get word that we've touched the top of the atmosphere, the vehicle has been alive or dead on the surface for at least 7 minutes.
Entry, descent, and landing, also known as EDL, is referred to as the 7 minutes of terror because we've got literally 7 minutes to get from the top of the atmosphere to the surface of Mars, going from 13,000 miles an hour to 0 in perfect sequence, perfect choreography, perfect timing, and the computer has to do it all by itself with no help from the ground. If any one thing doesn't work just right, it's game over.
We slam into the atmosphere and develop so much aerodynamic drag. Our heat shield, it heats up and it glows like the surface of the sun. 1,600 degrees.
During entry, the vehicle is not only slowing down violently through the atmosphere, but also we are guiding it like an airplane to be able to land in a very narrow, constrained space. This is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, and one that we had never attempted on Mars.
Mars is actually really hard to slow down because it has just enough atmosphere that you have to deal with it. Otherwise, it will destroy your spacecraft. On the other hand, it doesn't have enough atmosphere to finish the job. We're still going about 1,000 miles an hour. So at that point, we use a parachute.
The parachute is the largest and strongest supersonic parachute that we've ever built to date. It has to be able to withstand 65,000 pounds of force, even though the parachute itself only weighs about 100 pounds.
When it opens up that fast, it's a neck-snapping 9 Gs.
At that point, we have to get that heat shield off. It's like a big lens cap blocking our view of the ground to the radar. The radar has to take just the right altitude and velocity measurements at just the right time, or the rest of the landing sequence won't work.
This big, huge parachute that we've got, it'll only slow us down to about 200 miles an hour. And that's not slow enough to land. So we have no choice, but we've got to cut it off and then come down in rockets. Once we turn those rocket motors on, if we don't do something, we're just going to smack right back into the parachute. So the first thing we do is make this really radical divert maneuver. We fly off to the side.
Diverting away from the parachute, killing our horizontal velocity and our vertical velocity, getting the rover moving straight up and down so it can look at the surface with its radar and see where we're going to land. And we head straight down to the bottom of a crater, right beside a 6-kilometer high mountain.
We can't get those rocket engines too close to the ground, because if we were to descend propulsively with our engines all the way to the ground, we would essentially create this massive dust cloud. That dust cloud could then go and land on the rover. It could damage mechanisms and it could damage instruments. So the way we solve that problem is by using the sky crane maneuver.
20 meters above the surface, we have to lower the rover below us on a tether that's 21 feet long, and then gently deposit it on its wheels on the surface.
As the rover touches down and is now on the ground, the descent stage, it's in a collision course with the rover. We must cut the bridle immediately and fly the descent stage to a safe distance from the rover.
Is Mars really red? When you see Mars in the night sky, it definitely has a reddish tint to it. People have been noticing that for a long time. Even the ancient Egyptians called Mars the Red One. So where does that redness come from? Well, a lot of rocks on Mars are full of iron, and when they're exposed to the great outdoors, they oxidize and turn reddish, the same way an old bike left out in the yard gets all rusty. When rusty dust from those rocks gets kicked up in the atmosphere, it makes the Martian sky look pink. From a long way away, the whole planet looks kind of reddish, but if you get a close-up view, with an orbiter, lander, or rover, you'll see that a lot of Mars is actually more of a butterscotch color. Depending on what minerals are around, some landscapes can be more golden, brown, tan, or even a little greenish. So in fact, there are a lot of different colors on what we call the red planet. How do you get to Mars? If you want to send a spacecraft all the way to Mars, first you'll need a fast rocket to escape the pull of Earth's gravity. The heavier your spacecraft, the more powerful your rocket needs to be to lift off. Next, make sure you launch at the right time. Mars and Earth orbit the Sun at different speeds and distances. Sometimes they're really far apart, and other times they come closer together. About every 2 years, the two planets are in perfect positions to get to Mars with the least amount of rocket fuel. That's important. The total trip is over 300 million miles. Finally, make sure your aim is right. You can't shoot for where Mars is at launch time. You have to aim for where it will be when you get there. It's a lot like how a quarterback passes a football. Also, you may need a few thrusts to correct your direction along the way so you don't miss Mars. If all goes well, you'll get to the red planet in about 7 or 8 months. Then, if you actually want to land on Mars, well, that's a whole other challenge. How do you land on Mars? Very carefully. Your spacecraft hurtles toward the planet at thousands of miles per hour, so you'll have to hit the brakes in a hurry. First, your capsule needs a heat shield. It protects the spacecraft inside from the heat and friction of entry into the atmosphere. Friction slows you down over 90%, but not enough to land safely. Use a parachute to slow down even more. Still, falling at over 100 miles per hour, you need the right system to land safely. Here are some options. With a small to mid-size rover, use a cushion of airbags along with retro rockets. Impact at 30 miles an hour and bounce to a stop. With a large lander, use retro rockets and landing legs to touch down going about 6 miles an hour. Or with a large heavy rover, use a big jetpack to slow down to under 2 miles an hour. Then gently lower it on cables to land on its wheels. Any way you do it, you'll need skill and hard work. There's nothing easy about landing on Mars. How hard is it to land Curiosity on Mars? On a scale from 1 to 10, landing on Mars is a 20. Curiosity is the biggest, most capable Mars rover yet, and needs a new type of landing to reach the ground safely. In this 7-minute trip to the surface of Mars, we have to slow down from over 13,000 miles an hour down to 0. Hundreds of things have to go just right. Curiosity must hit the atmosphere at just the right angle, endure extreme heat from friction as it descends through the atmosphere, open its parachute at just the right time, use radar to know exactly how high it is, free itself from the parachute, perfectly fire 8 rocket engines to slow final descent, drop down dangling on 4 cables, lock its wheels into place just before landing, and cut the cables right at the moment of touchdown. And even if we do everything right, Mars can always surprise us. It's a big challenge, but a big opportunity to help unlock the mysteries of Mars.
I'm Scott Maxwell. I'm a Mars rover driver, and this is your Curiosity update. Through careful targeting, we've been able to shrink the land.
When people look at it, it looks crazy. That's a very natural thing. Sometimes when we look at it, it looks crazy. It is the result of reasoned engineering thought, but it still looks crazy. From the top of the atmosphere down to the surface,
but how astronauts use the same type of device in space and how it changes because of the lack of gravity.
Let's talk about some of the partnerships that NASA has forged some partnerships with different agencies and different institutions to get people jazzed up.
So it's so important that all the federal agencies that do STEM work together to leverage those resources, but we're also working with other partners like entertainers, ball players, because there's STEM in everything. The physics of football. Donovan McNabb, we were in his football camp teaching kids that physics principles can help them be better football players. Or the music, sounds, transmissions coming from deep space, like from Curiosity, can all be part of music or signals or those types of things. So it's very important that we have all those.
Well, it is a real treat to have you here. Thanks for spending all this time with us. And I know that you're looking forward to seeing Curiosity land on Mars.
Okay, all you kids out there that are watching this at your launch parties, go Curiosity.
Good shout out. All right.
Thanks, Gabe.
Now let's meet a group that's already been inspired by taking part in one of NASA's education programs. This one is called Imagine Mars. It's a hands-on experience where students use 21st century skills and their imaginations to answer a challenging question. What would it take to live on Mars?
The big problem that we're all facing today is that the United States is falling behind other countries in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And it's a big problem, so the question is, what do we do? Our solution that we have is a project called Imagine Mars, where we ask students to imagine and design a community on the planet Mars.
Our area is Arabia Terra, and the reason in which we chose it was because it's a flat surface. It's like a valley.
Here, this is my habitat on Mars, but first we have the map here. So pretty much explaining like our position and our whole purpose of setting up. So right here is a place called Hellas Planet, and it's like the lowest surface on Mars.
But it was somewhere in this area. Okay, somewhere in this area.
Close to the equator.
Why did you guys choose that particular location on Mars to put your community? Well, since we're on Mars and it's farther away from the sun, we want to try and get as much sunlight and heat as we can.
Imagine Mars fits into this process called project-based learning. That means we give the students a task that they need to achieve. And in order to achieve that task, they need to learn things along the way. The task that we're giving them is they need to build a community on Mars.
If we're going to another planet, we might as well start fresh and, healthier.
That's where I come in, because I am the head of botany and agriculture, and I'm in charge of like the plants and what we're gonna eat, our nutrition plans, which we won't be eating meat, we're gonna be healthy in Mars.
They started on this process, this exploration process, to look into their own community, figure out the things that they liked about it and things that they would change. And they worked with architects, took tours of these amazing places like the Center for Green Technology, and they saw how green technology was being used throughout the city. And the students had amazing ideas. They created a lot of solutions to living on the planet Mars, but it didn't end there. They had to visualize those ideas using 3D architectural software. And they only had a short time to do it, but their energy and their excitement about their ideas really gave them momentum to learn this software. And they went from not ever having touched or used this software before to coming up with these amazing designs that we see in this project.
This was exciting. This was something to do for summer that wouldn't have happened without Imagine Mars. And it was something that they can go back to school and report during the summer, this is what I did, and they can write a paper on it, and they can apply the knowledge straight into the classroom, which is really great because it emphasizes, as I said before, careers that normally wouldn't be exposed to kids, technology, science, and all the other careers. And the kids now are talking about being architects, some of them being doctors, some of them being scientists themselves or engineers. So it's really just a great career opening.
If you look at their project and the amount of time that they actually were working with the software, there's a major transformation in their knowledge and in their skills. And it just goes to show you what can happen when you give students a unique and engaging opportunity to learn.
And in case you've just joined us, you're watching Mars is All About Learning, live from Mission Control at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. We are now less than 2 hours from Curiosity's landing. Our landing coverage begins at the top of the hour at 9 p.m. But right now in this pre-show program, we're showing you how students of all ages are learning and being inspired. And speaking of inspiration, we have a very special guest. You may know him as a popular entertainer and member of the Black Eyed Peas, but at NASA, he's known for his support to kids and getting them interested about science and engineering. Let's welcome will.i.am.
How are you?
Fine. Thanks for being here.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
So we had some video of you from the Tweet Up at launch, and what was that experience for you?
Oh, that was amazing, you know, to see humanity at our finest. All the, you know, innovation and dedication to be able to defy the laws of gravity and send a piece of humanity out to a different planet. It was just amazing to see.
One of the messages you made there was that you wanted science and technology to be a part of popular culture. What did you mean by that?
So science, technology is already a part of popular culture, just that the world of STEM hasn't figured out a way to remind people that that iPhone and that iPad and that, you know, all the code that makes Twitter and Facebook work, it all comes from, you know, people that have an education around STEM.
So you get involved in stuff like FIRST Robotics. We have footage of you being a part of that whole experience and getting kids really excited, and we can roll some of that footage. That was not too long ago. I guess that was just this spring?
Yeah, so last year I made a TV program with Dean Kamen called I Am First, which was inspired by Dean Kamen's US First. And I wanted to, you know, do my part and make a TV program. So it's a part of, you know, my efforts in supporting Obama. And that, you know, it's called Yes We Can. So I'm a part of that we. You know, so are you people at home. How are you going to contribute to change our communities, to change our America? So I want to change my neighborhood. And in order for me to change my neighborhood, I have to inspire kids to let them know that science is cool. So that means I have to invest to make a TV show. So that TV show got a #2 rating on ABC. I promoted myself on Twitter, and it was around all of Dean Kamen's activities and providing a platform and a program called US First, where kids compete in building robots.
But what got you inspired? I mean, what triggered it in you to want to do something?
The tools, you know, computers, they help me make music. They help expand my ideas to where I could come up with an idea right now, send it around the world. And it rides on a, you know, electromagnetic highway, and people are entertained and hear my music on phones and computers. And the school that I went to, Brentwood Science Magnet, I was always around science growing up ever since the 7th grade. And now I want to do my part, you know.
And doing your part is taking it home to Boyle Heights here in LA.
So yeah, so I'm building a STEM center, after-school program in East Los Angeles. There's a movie called Waiting for Superman. My mom went to that school, Roosevelt. I was supposed to go to that school. And STEM isn't in the hood. STEM isn't even in Palisades where I got bussed out. So I want to change that. So I built my I Am College Track Center in partnerships with Lorraine Jobs and Dean Kamen. And I don't want to just stop it in East Los Angeles. So then I took all the money that I made from doing The Voice in the UK, and I gave it to Prince Charles to build a STEM center in East London.
So it's international.
International. It's going to take, you know, people from the UK, people from the Philippines. It's going to take everybody realizing that science, technology, engineering, mathematics is the coolest thing in the world.
And you know what? This is really the most inspiring thing. It really is to see what you're doing and taking it on as your personal quest.
You know, if it's not in your city already, there's something stopping it. So I don't want my neighborhood to continue to be the way it was 20 years from now. You know, all it takes is one kid. It takes one kid from Boyle Heights to turn into Mark Zuckerberg, and then my neighborhood's change forever. It takes one kid to be, you know, Elon Musk, that's from Brixton, and Brixton has changed forever. It takes one Filipino kid from Pampanga to be, you know, Jack Dorsey, and then Philippines has changed forever. So all you have to do is just, you know, I'll take skin off my back. You know, I've done music, I've lived my dreams. I want to do what's going to motivate and change communities 20 years from now.
And I mean, you've had this exciting singing career. How does this stack up? How does this compare?
So if you think of music, and if someone reminds you that music is just technology, you know, the technology it takes to mold brass into a trumpet, or to make a piano, or the technology it takes for this transmission that RCA created, you know, with NTSC, or a record, a phonograph. That's all technology. The radio is technology. You know, video is all technology. And then art sat on top of it. So now that we have all these new tools, we have to create a new marriage between art, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and that is called STEAM, S-T-A-M. So that's what I want to put that A in that STEM to create some steam.
All right. Well, while you're here, I understand you wanted to do a shout out.
A shout out?
A shout out to some of the kids out there?
Oh, yes. I want to shout out to all the kids that joined up in Boyle Heights for my I Am College track program. On August 15th, we're going to come here for the bringing all the kids from Boyle Heights to come here to JPL to be a part of the download, because I wrote a song for Curiosity, and you know, there's going to be a surprise, something that's going to come from Curiosity.
Okay. So keep it a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise.
All right. Well, we're going to look forward to the visit.
Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for joining us. And if you've just joined us and you're watching Mars, it's all about learning live from Mission Control at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. We are about a quarter of an hour away from the start of our Curiosity landing coverage. That program begins at 9 p.m. Pacific, and landing is expected around 10:32 p.m. Pacific. And speaking of the red planet, ever wonder why Mars is red? Let's take a minute to find out in this Mars Minute.
Is Mars really red? When you see Mars in the night sky, it definitely has a reddish tint to it. People have been noticing that for a long time. Even the ancient Egyptians called Mars the Red One. So where does that redness come from? Well, a lot of rocks on Mars are full of iron, and when they're exposed to the great outdoors, they oxidize and turn reddish, the same way an old bike left out in the yard gets all rusty. When rusty dust from those rocks gets kicked up in the atmosphere, it makes the Martian sky look pink. From a long way away, the whole planet looks kind of reddish, but if you get a close-up view with an orbiter, lander, or rover, you'll see that a lot of Mars is actually more of a butterscotch color. Depending on what minerals are around, some landscapes can be more golden, brown, tan, or even a little greenish. So in fact, there are a lot of different colors on what we call the red planet.
Throughout the evening, you may hear this mission referred to as MSL, short for the Mars Science Laboratory. Now, that's the original name of the entire mission that includes the rover, its science lab, and the spacecraft that's carrying the rover. The rover's name now is Curiosity, and the name was the winning entry in a national naming contest, and it was submitted by a then 12-year-old sixth grader, Clara Ma from Kansas. And Clara joins us now, and she's much bigger. She's taller than me now. But welcome. First, let's talk about how you came up with the name Curiosity.
I think I first thought of the name Curiosity when I was reading about it in A Time for Kids magazine, and curiosity was the first thing that popped into my head. And I had no idea why, but and I didn't really think about it much before it had. But afterwards, I thought about it so much, and what the word curiosity really means to me, and how I really believe 100% of the things that I wrote in my essay, and how it's really human nature to always wonder what's out there, what's beyond this world and this planet. And as a sixth grader, I thought, how cool would it be for a rover going to Mars to carry a name that embodies such an important part of who we are, a part that aspires to learn and to ask questions.
You're absolutely right. It is the perfect name. And this whole experience since naming the rover, what has that been like? We have footage of you coming here to JPL when you were 12 and seeing the rover and seeing it in the Mars yard, and we can roll that footage. What has this experience been like for you?
This experience has been absolutely life-changing. I mean, I wrote the essay when I was actually 11, so it's been almost 4 years now, and I've kind of grown up with it. Just getting to meet all of these amazing people, these scientists, engineers, they inspire me so much, and this experience has really changed just the person that I am and also the person that I want to become.
So, last question, reflecting over all of this, what will you carry the most with you?
Just the words of the people that I've met here at JPL and at NASA. They are so amazing, so successful and intelligent, but what really impresses me about them is how hard they work and how dedicated they are to what they do. And seeing them do what they do, it makes me believe that I can someday accomplish what I want to do, however impossible it may be. I mean, just take a look at Curiosity's landing tonight, 7 minutes of terror, and it seems pretty crazy, but...
Well, you're on your way, and you can reach beyond the stars in your career. All right, thank you for joining us. And if you're interested in Mars, you'll be happy to know that there are many ways to learn about the red planet. And here's a look at some of the ways you can explore Mars.
How exciting would it be to be part of a group of students who actually use a spacecraft to conduct their own science investigation at Mars? It sounds like science fiction, but it's science fact. It's called the Mars Student Imaging Project, and it's open to student classrooms grades 5 through college. One group of middle school students even discovered a cave on Mars. Dream of exploring Mars one day? Students can use their imagination to design their own community on Mars in the Imagine Mars project. Got a question about Mars, maybe a homework assignment, and you need a little help? Try asking Dr. C. For instance, you can ask him how big Mars is, and he'll give you the answer. Mars is only half the size of Earth. If you're a teacher and looking for lesson plans and activities to assist you in the classroom, check out the downloadable Mars Activities. It's where you'll find a wealth of ideas about how to engage your students. If you want to explore Mars on your own, you can be a Martian. At this internet site, you can explore many aspects of Mars, or you can contribute to a better understanding of the red planet by participating in what's called citizen science, by helping to create a Mars map, count craters, tag rover images, and more. If you just want some electronic playtime, there's Mars 3D, actual images of Mars taken by NASA spacecraft in 3 dimensions. Speaking of 3D, check out the brand new Explore Mars website where you can roam around in 3D. If you have an Xbox, you can try your own skill at landing on Mars. As a free download, students can also learn to be a rover driver and make their own discoveries in a new NASA Mars experience with Kodu, a new visual programming language accessible for children and made specifically for creating games. Want to fly to Mars aboard Curiosity? Try out Eyes on the Solar System. And don't forget, you can get the latest on Martian discoveries anytime, anywhere, on Be a Martian mobile apps on all devices, Android, iPhone, and Windows Phone. Plus, look for Mars information on your favorite social media sites, Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. There are many ways you can learn about the red planet and all about the NASA missions there. Mars, it's all about learning.
With us now is Doug Ellison, one of JPL's visualization wizards, who's going to tell us more about Eyes on the Solar System and some of the other great applications we have. So give us a tour, Eyes on the Solar System.
So thanks, Kay. What Eyes on the Solar System is a tool that lives on people's computers via their web browser. It lives at eyes.nasa.gov. Any reasonably modern PC or Mac can go and use it. And it puts the planets, their moons, asteroids, comets, and loads of our robotic envoys that have been exploring them over almost 50 years of exploration right in your fingertips. And you can go and ride on board these spacecraft. You can recreate flybys of places like Saturn with Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. You can ride on board Juno as we fly across the solar system towards Jupiter, and loads of different missions are all in there for you to use and enjoy.
So we have actual footage of it, so
Let's
you can
have a
sort of demonstrate some of the things it can do. Here it comes.
So this is what Eyes on the Solar System looks like when you first load it. You can just like using Google Earth, but it's inside out. It's everything else. Here's you can use bookmarks and go straight to Voyager 1 flying past Saturn. This is all the way back in 1980. Here's Cassini arriving at Saturn. You see the spacecraft turning around, firing its main engine, putting itself into orbit. All of this is actually real reconstructed engineering data. This is Juno orbiting Jupiter in 2014, ready to do all of its science. All of these things are right there in Eyes on the Solar System.
But everyone tonight is worried and thinking about EDL.
Of course.
And Curiosity's landing. What can you do with that?
We've had some amazing help from some of the navigation team, and they've given us some beautiful predicted trajectories, some simulation data that takes us all the way from, as we are now, about 13,000 miles away from Mars, all the way to the surface. And people going to eyes.nasa.gov can use that themselves as well. We don't just have a live mode for people to enjoy. We can actually also fast forward and preview the rest of this evening's events as well. In fact, if we go to John's feed, my colleague John is using Eyes on the Solar System right now, and that's a live view right now of where Curiosity is. If we could skip through the preview mode, you'll actually see this is MSL in just about an hour and a half's time, just before it hits the top of the Martian atmosphere, and we can fast forward through time using the control at the bottom of the screen. We're speeding up time and making our 7 minutes of terror much, much shorter here.
So we'll be using cuts of this. We'll be cutting to it throughout the evening.
Yes, we
but
will.
People can load this on their computer
They can
right
do it,
now.
They can do it right at home. And we've had something like 400,000 people use it today already. And we're ready for a whole lot more people to come along and enjoy the ride as well.
All right. So what else do you got?
Well, we don't just stop with the whole solar system. We look at the Earth as well. A lot of what JPL does is, in fact, Earth sciences. And not a lot of people know that. So we have a tool called Eyes on the Earth. It's like a sister product to Eyes on the Solar System. And in there you can look at real-time climate data. Every single day we update data sets from a variety of different missions, and you can put them right on your desktop. You can bring in carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, air temperature, loads of different values. And it lets people understand exactly how much work we're doing to understand what this planet is up to.
And there's still more applications.
Of course. Eyes on the Earth has a twin sister on mobile phones called Earth Now that we'll be doing both for it's on iOS already and Android very, very soon. And I think the most popular application we've done recently is called Spacecraft 3D, which is...
And this is the one.
Here it is. So,
this is the one I wanted to see.
So Spacecraft 3D is an augmented reality application, which means it uses an image. In fact, you print it out when you install the application. You can print out this image at home. And it uses this image, which is actually, as it happens, a test image from Curiosity's microscope of some sand grains. We just use that as a reference, and then your mobile phone or your iPad sees this image and knows where you are and can start drawing a 3D model of what Curiosity looks like.
Okay, so you have to have this in order to be able to do this.
Yes, you print this image out, and what you get, and hopefully we can show it to people at home.
All right.
Here's my iPad Live, and it's just seeing the image. We hide the image, it goes away. And there's Curiosity drawn over the top. And this is actually how Curiosity will look when we land on the Martian surface. You can see the camera mast right here is actually stowed. But we can animate various parts of the rover. And so I can hit this button here and deploy the mast. And there it goes. This is what Curiosity will look like after a few days on the surface. And I won't move the iPad too much because otherwise the cameraman will get angry with me. But we can move the image instead. You can actually see the image right behind us here. There it is.
Let's see you spin.
Smile.
There you go.
And we can animate other things as well. We can even bring the robotic arm out as well. Here it goes. There's the robotic arm coming out.
There
we
she
can get
goes.
really close and look at the instruments on board the end of the robotic arm. We can see things right on the deck of the rover, all the way up to the top of the camera mast. See the two mast cams and chem cam right there.
Now, this is something that people can do in their own homes, with their own iPhones, with their own iPads.
It's iPad and iPhone right now. We're going to be doing an Android version in just a few weeks' time.
What a lot of fun. This is a blast. See? And it's magic.
We have been accused of magic. It is incredible just how much fun it can be to have Curiosity sat right on top of your table, on your floor. We've even had some friends take screenshots of this with it sat on their dog's head.
And I understand there will be other spacecraft besides Curiosity.
Right now, there's Curiosity and the Grail spacecraft. We have
Okay.
2 Grail spacecraft orbiting the moon. And in a few weeks' time, we're going to update this to include Cassini, which is at Saturn,
Okay.
Voyager at the edge of the solar system, and the Dawn spacecraft, which is on its way away from the asteroid Vesta right now.
Sounds a lot of fun, and you can impress your friends. Thanks, Doug.
My pleasure.
So now you're on your way and up to speed to ways for you to explore Mars from your home, on your laptop, even on your cell phone. And of course, you can always stay connected via social media such as Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. Right now, we're going to take a brief break, and when we return at the top of the hour, we will begin our Curiosity landing night coverage, so don't go away. Good evening from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Less than 90 minutes from now, the Rover Curiosity will begin a harrowing 7-minute descent into the Martian atmosphere, moving at a speed of over 13,000 miles per hour. Now, if all goes according to plan, 7 minutes later, at about 10:32 Pacific time, engineers hope to receive the signal that Curiosity is standing safely on the surface of Mars. Hello, I'm Ye Hill, and it is a pleasure to be here on this exciting evening. Let's start by setting the scene. We are in JPL's Master Control, home of NASA's Deep Space Network. You might think of this as a giant communication switchboard for NASA spacecraft. This is where space telescopes, orbiters, and probes phone home their discoveries about the solar system and beyond. And tonight, it is a packed house. And just a few feet from me is the Mission Support Area, the MSA. That's where members of the flight team are monitoring the newest mission to Mars. And in other parts of the lab, there are many more people taking part. There are the engineers that will be crunching the data in the entry, descent, and landing strategy area. and scientists from all over the world who can't wait to begin making new discoveries in the days ahead. And there are special guests that have filled venues all across the lab and all over town. And then there's you, whether you're watching on NASA TV, on the web, at a museum sleepover, at New York City's Times Square, or anywhere else in the world, we are glad you could join us. Now, for those of you watching this commentated coverage, we want to assure you you won't miss any critical moments. In fact, a half hour before the landing, we'll transition mostly to a listen and watch mode so you can get a front seat to the nail-biting events of Curiosity's entry, descent, and landing on Mars. But if you want to listen just to the mission, a clean feed, we call it, of the events in the mission control, that's available via NASA's media channel. And you can find that on the NASA homepage at www.nasa.gov. And as for our coverage on this channel, here's what we have planned. For the next hour, we'll give you some background on Curiosity and help you follow this event. We've scheduled our videos and interviews with key members of the team around the key technical events, so you won't miss a thing because we'll be checking in with Mission Control. Now, you may know this mission will be attempting for the very first time, an entirely new landing system. And one question that keeps cropping up is why not use airbags like previous missions? To answer that question, we have a Martian Minute to find out.
How do you land on Mars? Very carefully. Your spacecraft hurtles toward the planet at thousands of miles per hour, so you'll have to hit the brakes in a hurry. First, your capsule needs a heat shield. It protects the spacecraft inside from the heat and friction of entry into the atmosphere. Friction slows you down over 90%, but not enough to land safely. Use a parachute to slow down even more. Still, falling at over 100 miles per hour, you need the right system to land safely. Here are some options. With a small to mid-size rover, use a cushion of airbags along with retro rockets. Impact at 30 miles an hour and bounce to a stop. With a large lander, use retro rockets and landing legs to touch down going about 6 miles an hour. Or with a large heavy rover, use a big jetpack to slow down to under 2 miles an hour. Then gently lower it on cables to land on its wheels. Any way you do it, you'll need skill and hard work. There's nothing easy about landing on Mars.
Indeed, there is nothing easy about landing on Mars. Historically, the odds of success is only 1 in 3. So we're in for a nail-biting evening. And to help us with our nerves and to tell us what's going on, we'll be checking in with Alan Chen. He is the mission's EDL operations lead and our guide and the voice of Mission Control. Alan, how are we doing?
We're doing great so far. Everything is looking great.
Well, one thing that a lot of folks don't understand is that the Mission Control folks can't possibly drive the rover. They can't joystick this spacecraft. Can you explain why?
Sure. It takes 14 minutes for those radio waves to get from Curiosity all the way back here to Earth. Another 14 minutes for us to send any commands up back to Curiosity. So there's no way we're going to joystick this. She's on her own. She's got to do everything on her own, and it's almost do or die time.
Okay, so if she's on her own, then what are you folks doing in Mission Control then?
At this point, all we can really do is just watch and report on what's going on, and tell everybody here what's going on, and tell the rest of the world. That way we'll be in a position to tell the surface how things are going when we get down to the surface, and we'll know that we have a safe rover.
Okay, can you show us what you look at then to kind of understand what's taking place and where we are in time and place?
Sure. If you take a look over my shoulder here, you can see that we're monitoring telemetry that's coming from Curiosity. I've got my countdown pole, and I've got the mode that the spacecraft's in, the little messages it's sending us. Once we're in EDL, we'll have data relayed through Odyssey, and we'll get the visualization over here that'll show us exactly how Curiosity is doing on our way through the atmosphere.
All right, and Alan, I understand we've got a couple of polls coming up. Can you explain what we should expect?
That's right. We're in the middle of a transmitter off poll right now. What we're doing is making sure we're ready to not talk to or not command Curiosity anymore. We haven't sent a command in quite a while, but just in case there's anything left that we might want to tell Curiosity, we want to make sure that no one has anything left and that she's okay on her own.
All right, well, we'll listen in with you then, and just give us any tips and highlights as you listen in.
Will do.
Copy, Yates, go. Okay, copy that, and mission. And missions go. Roger, copy mission. Okay, we do have a window for uplink transmitter off, so we're going to pause for the opening of that window. Stand by.
Flight GDSA.
GDSA flight go.
Can I get nav on a local net?
Sure, go for local 1.
Copy.
We have a short window here where we can command the transmitter off, so we're trying to make sure we complete that poll before that window closes. Yeah. No, Still going, I missed the beginning. Okay. Sounds like the poll's been completed. We're getting ready to turn off that transmitter. Okay.
And Ace Flight, you are clear to bring down the uplink transmitter at 0410.
Ace copies.
The flight director has just told everyone that we're getting ready to turn off the transmitter in about 30 seconds. That means we will no longer be sending any commands to the spacecraft, and she'll really be flying it on her own. The flight director has instructed the ACE, the person who talks to our deep space network, that it's okay to turn off the transmitter. So that's what we're standing by for, that the ACE is talking to the DSN right now. And we'll get that transmitter off and get confirmation of that shortly.
Flight Telecom.
I've been trying to shoot you at iChat just to have a path to chatting with you. You appear on. Thanks, bye.
For those of you out there following along on Eyes on the Solar System, you might note that Curiosity is now within the orbit of Deimos, which is one of Mars's moons. We're getting really close.
So just a reminder that
Flight Telecom. Telecom Flight, go ahead. Flight Mom data from 14 shows the uplink transmitter is off. Okay, copy that.
That's it. The ACE has just confirmed that the Deep Space
Okay,
Network has confirmed that they've turned off the transmitter. So we're no longer trying to command Curiosity or tell her anything. She's just telling us what's going on.
We've just severed our command uplink to the vehicle, and she is truly on her own.
All right, so as we just heard, the transmitter is off and Curiosity is definitely on her own. And with those polls complete, we have a few minutes to talk more about the mission. The bigger the payload, the bigger the challenge of placing it safely on the surface. So the question engineers had to answer was, how do you land Curiosity, the biggest, most complex rover ever sent to the Red Planet, safely on the surface of Mars? That takes a whole new way of doing things, as you'll see in this Martian Minute.
How hard is it to land Curiosity on Mars? On a scale from 1 to 10, landing on Mars is a 20. Curiosity is the biggest, most capable Mars rover yet, and needs a new type of landing to reach the ground safely. In this 7-minute trip to the surface of Mars, we have to slow down from over 13,000 miles an hour down to 0. Hundreds of things have to go just right. Curiosity must hit the atmosphere at just the right angle, endure extreme heat from friction as it descends through the atmosphere, open its parachute at just the right time, use radar to know exactly how high it is, free itself from the parachute, perfectly fire 8 rocket engines to slow final descent, drop down dangling on 4 cables, lock its wheels into place just before landing, and cut the cables right at the moment of touchdown. And even if we do everything right, Mars can always surprise us. It's a big challenge, but a big opportunity to help unlock the mysteries of Mars.
Joining us now is NASA Deputy Administrator for NASA, Lori Garver. Thanks for stopping by, and such a wonderful occasion. How do you see this mission fitting in with NASA's overall goals?
Well, it is, of course, intrinsically part of NASA's mission to explore, and there's nothing more inherently human than exploration. We're an exploring species, and we live in an exciting time where we can actually do this. Our vision is to reach for new heights and reveal the unknown so that what we do and learn will benefit all humankind. This mission with Curiosity really, of course, is not only reaching for new heights, but will reveal the unknown. And that benefit comes in the tangible ways of driving technology and innovation, but also in the spiritual and emotional of recognizing we live in a time when we can explore, and humanity, uniquely as a species, explores for reasons beyond just survival. And that is what we're doing, not only for NASA with this mission, but for America and for the world.
Well, the way these missions work quite often is one mission sort of builds the footsteps for the next mission. And how does this build footsteps perhaps for human exploration?
Well, this is, of course, a giant leap, as you've been talking about all night. We're really driving technology and innovation with this, not only as an engineering challenge, but as a way to advance the science and recognize whether or not life could have existed or could in the future on Mars. For us, being able to land something in larger and larger measures with this capability will come the ability to land humans. We are going to learn about the science of where we should best go when we send our valuable payloads of astronauts, but also how to do it. So it's critical, and plus we have, of course, experiments like the radiation experiment to help us understand how we'll have to protect our astronauts when we go.
And I've heard you speak in the past about how many of the things NASA does gives us new technology that can be applied to everyone. And is that something that you're looking forward to seeing?
Of course. Our missions help drive technology for future, more difficult missions, but also for us back here on Earth. And the ability to withstand radiation is something we need to learn about on Earth, but we have gotten amazing benefits from the space program, from health to materials, and we have on this mission, I think, just barely scratched the surface of the benefits to us here in this planet as we go beyond.
So we're looking forward to a lot of new applications that we can all use in the very near future, perhaps.
Absolutely, and we have also looking forward to, I think, the ability to do something that has never been done and challenge not only the brain but the heart as we explore.
Lori, it's a real pleasure to have you here, and I'm sure you're excited just as much as we are to watch this all happen and unfold. Thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you. I couldn't be more excited.
All right. Thank you. So we know we have a big rover, a rover that's already made some big technological advances, but the mission really is about learning more about Mars. What's the next big step in Mars science? Let's find out.
One of the most challenging aspects of this mission happens before we even land, and it's picking the right landing site for the mission. We want to study the habitability of Mars. We want to really figure out if it was ever capable of supporting life. And the way we do that is to really follow the evidence of water on Mars. One of the most interesting things about Mars is that it's changed over time. What we see on Mars today is very different from what occurred in the distant past. And water is the real interesting thing that we're looking for, the history of water, how it's changed over time. One of the biggest challenges to studying habitability on Mars, which is the goal of the Curiosity rover mission, is to try to follow that signature of water. Where was the water? How long was it there? And where do we go to look for evidence of it? If we were somewhere like this, where there's a pretty obvious geologic record of water flowing, carrying material down, that would be a home run. But the real challenge is finding that one spot on Mars to send this great rover mission to. Why do we like layered materials? Because just like this outcrop behind me, they give a record of time, of how things change over time. By studying different layers, you can rebuild the geologic history of Mars. So there's a place called Gale Crater, which has a 3-mile stack of layered rocks. Now, we don't exactly know how those layers formed, and the mineralogical evidence isn't as strong as other sites, but people who just think layers are the thing to study really love Gale.
John Grotzinger of Caltech is the project scientist, and he joins us now, and I bet you're probably the most excited person here.
We're ready to go.
We're ready to go. Now, we're headed for Gale Crater, and we've got some pictures to show folks. Tell us about this place. Why this place?
Gale's a really cool landing spot. It's so neat because it sits on the boundary of a major topographic feature on Mars. And because it's on that boundary, that means if there was water flowing across the surface, it would run down and form a puddle inside the crater there. And so we're excited because it's low on Mars and water flows downhill, and if you don't know anything else, that's what's good.
Let's say how low. I remember you saying that this is actually lower than Valles Marineris?
It is, Gay. It's lower. It's a couple thousand meters lower than Valles Marineris, and the neat thing about it is that you've got a chance then to trap fluids that might be moving around.
So here's Gale Crater, and in the middle of it is this way cool thing, and we have a picture of the ellipse that shows it. Mount Sharp. Tell us about Mount Sharp.
Yeah, Mount Sharp is a really neat feature, and you can see it there in the graphic. And basically, from the landing ellipse up to the top of Mount Sharp is taller than the elevation of Mount Whitney, which is the largest mountain in the lower 48 states. And so we hope to land in the ellipse, do some work around there, and then eventually begin this long, slow climb up the flanks of Mount Sharp looking for evidence of habitable environments.
So Curiosity is going to be climbing Mount Sharp, but right where we are planning to land, there's some cool things there as well, some alluvial fans.
Yeah, this was a really great surprise. We knew about it when we picked the landing site, and we were so excited because it gives us something to work on right away. And so what you can see in the graphic is that alluvial fan is a feature that just transports broken bits of rock that are in water, in a flow of water, and it spreads them out down into a lower area. And so the blue colors are lower in elevation, the red colors are higher, and so ancient sedimentary materials were transported down right into our landing site. And so this gives us a really good chance, we think, of finding some evidence of water-rich environments right where we land.
So we can be exploring some way cool stuff very soon.
Yeah, we're excited about it for sure.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you get back into the control room. I know you're really excited, and good luck, Curiosity.
Thank you.
All right. And as we're hearing, landing on Mars is full of challenges. The same is true of communications during landing. It is a complex dance of celestial mechanics that has to take into account the positions of 2 planets, 3 spacecraft, all of which are in motion, going in different directions. Sound complicated? Well, it is. Here's a video to try to break it down into simple terms.
After 7 dramatic minutes of entry, descent, and landing, everyone will want to know, Did Curiosity survive? There's a possibility we won't know, at least not right away. During its descent through the atmosphere, Curiosity must switch to a new antenna for each transformation it makes. At each switch, we could lose lock on the signal for a short time. That won't hurt the rover, it just means we won't know what's happening right away. Even with a solid signal, the communications link direct to Earth only works during the first half of the rover's descent. Why? Like Earth, Mars is spinning, and during landing, Curiosity and its landing site will disappear from view like the sun setting. Out of sight equals the end of direct radio contact. But NASA has 2 spacecraft orbiting Mars that can help. For the second half of Curiosity's descent, the Mars Odyssey orbiter is in a good place to pick up the rover's signal and send it right back to Earth. To best hear Curiosity's signal, Odyssey must rotate about an hour before landing. That sounds easy, but engineers are asking Odyssey to perform a maneuver it's never tried before. Will it work? Probably, but it's not a sure thing. If Odyssey doesn't rotate successfully, never fear, the rover won't be affected whatsoever. Once again, it just means we have to wait longer to hear from the rover. Odyssey could perform as hoped, but we're still not home free. Engineers always think of what-ifs. For instance, what if the rover lands on a slope? If so, the low-flying Odyssey orbiter might not be able to pick up its signal. Even if everything goes according to plan with Odyssey, there's a final challenge: time. The rover may be standing safe on Mars, but Odyssey has to be quick in getting the signal. Odyssey is moving fast. It will only be in the line of sight to hear from the rover for a few minutes, perhaps no more than 5. So the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter plays the role of backup. It will also fly overhead to capture what happens and then store the landing data it collects on board for playback to Earth a few hours later. Engineers then have to decode the data, which takes several hours. Sometime in the middle of the night for Curiosity's mission team, it's possible that the orbiter could tell us the rover's fate. Or there are other scenarios where the rover might be perfectly safe, but we might not hear from it for 3 days. That's all to say, Curiosity's landing is filled with drama, and we'll need lots of patience. No wonder they call this rocket science.
And you're watching live coverage of Curiosity's entry, descent, and landing on Mars. And we are a little more than an hour away from the projected time of Curiosity's landing. And no one knows how challenging this landing is going to be than Mars Science Laboratory Project Manager Pete Teisinger. Pete's been through this before, twice in fact, with Spirit and Opportunity.
Yes.
So you know how tense this is going to be, and I guess we must remind the audience that even if Curiosity lands safely on Mars, there is the possibility that we may not know it.
That's true. We are reliant for Odyssey to give us critical telemetry communication in a real-time, near real-time fashion for the very tail end of entry, descent, and landing. Back on Spirit and Opportunity, we had these earth tones all the way to the surface. But on Curiosity, the landing site is below the horizon as seen from Earth. It has just set a couple minutes ahead, and so Curiosity will kind of fall over the horizon just after the parachute deploys. So Odyssey is key for us learning right away whether or not we've landed successfully.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. Now, a lot of people don't realize that Curiosity was built and tested right here at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and we have pictures of Curiosity in the clean room the days that it was being packed up and sent off for launch.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a little faster than it really happened.
Just a couple of minutes faster, yes. Well, how do you want to do this?
All right, so this gives you an idea of the rover and its size. You can see all the folks in their bunny suits and all the technology that went into this rover. And to give you an idea of some of the technology here, we've brought on here to the desk a wheel of Curiosities.
Yes, you almost have to look through it, right?
You
Hello.
almost have to.
How are you?
It's quite large. And let's compare that to Spirit's wheel, and compare that to Sojourner's wheel.
In fact, if you look at Spirit, the bottom of the electronics enclosure on Spirit is right at the top of Curiosity's wheel.
Wow.
So, major step forward.
But this puts quickly into perspective what you're dealing with. This is an entirely different rover, which meant that you had to address it differently. Your landing had to be different, your landing system.
That's right. Spirit and Opportunity were geologists, rover geologists. We are now wanted to have a roving chemical laboratory, and that meant that the science instruments were much larger, much more complex, and much more sophisticated. That meant that the rover had to be larger. In addition, the scientists wanted it to last longer, so we had to design it to last 2 years rather than the 90 days for Spirit and Opportunity, even though they've lasted longer. And also the scientists wanted to row further, 20 kilometers. And so all those things put technological demands on the development. For the sampling, they also wanted to do sampling for the chemical instruments, and the sampling required a drill and processing of that sample. They wanted to go to better landing sites, and so we used guided entry so we could get into a smaller ellipse. There are a large variety of technological achievements.
And speaking of that, because you had to think out of the box and think of a new way of landing this rover, you've come up with new technology, and the ellipse now, you can actually target things much better than previous missions. We have a graphic that shows a comparison of the ellipses.
Yes, you can see on the graphic the size of the Pathfinder ellipse and how large it was, and the size of the Mir and the Phoenix ellipse, and then the size of MSL ellipse. And the reason that's important is because you recognize that you want to be safe no matter where you land in the ellipse. And that meant that Pathfinder had to find a region that large that was safe for it to land. Clearly, Gale Crater would not be that. Even Mir, which landed at Gusev and Meridiana, you can see could not fit into the moat around Mount Sharp. As a result, even though at the time of Mir, Gale was considered a nice landing site, we did not have the landing system that allowed that to happen. Now with MSL, we have the guided entry, the sky crane approach, and you can see we're able to get right next to Mount Sharp, and that lovely sedimentary strata that John Grossinger has talked about.
Wow. So before you go, there's a big question. Everybody wants to know, will we see some pictures right after landing today?
Maybe. We do take a picture after we land, about 2 or 3 minutes, within 4 minutes after we land. And at that point, Odyssey, this very key communication link, is just reaching over the horizon. And so it's possible that we are hopeful that we'll see pictures, but when it's so close to the horizon, there's difficulty in the communications because of multipath and other technical things. So maybe not.
Maybe.
Maybe,
we'll keep
maybe
our fingers
not.
crossed.
We will too.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for joining us. I know you're anxious to get back into that control room. Yeah. You're watching live coverage of the landing of the Curiosity rover on Mars from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. JPL is managed by the California Institute of Technology on behalf of NASA. This is on NASA TV, but you can also watch on the web at www.nasa.gov/Mars, and you'll see all sorts of information there. And in the days ahead, you can follow Curiosity by visiting the Participate website at www.jpl.nasa.gov/MSL/participate. Right now, let's go back to Alan Chen for an update.
Okay, just wanted to let you know about a couple things that have happened. We've checked in with the relay orbiters. They are green for EDL support. Odyssey is right now in the middle of a turn, so they're not communicating with Earth. We expect them back around 10 p.m. Pacific, somewhere between 10 and 10:10 Pacific. Right now, navigation is giving a report on our current situation, so we can check in with what happened there. But from what I can see, we're right on target.
But I don't know if you want me to talk about it. If time permits, we'll check in again.
Okay, our current nav situation, they're working on a couple issues with their terminal, but otherwise everything is good. We are pretty much right on target, right where we need to be. So we've had a clean route so far, and we'll come back to them later to see if anything has changed. In a couple of minutes, the EDL activity lead and I will brief the flight team on what to expect over the next hour or so, as we're just over 50 minutes from entry. So we'll talk about what activities are between here and EDL start, and then we'll also talk about what folks should expect to see data-wise throughout EDL.
Testbed flight. Could we go to a local net? Standby 1. Let's go to local 1. Sounds good. MSTV flight on Rover.
That's right.
And while I have a moment, I'd like to show you two visualizations we'll be using during our landing coverage. One of them is what we talked about just a little bit earlier. It's the Eyes on the Solar System, which is a computerized simulation using predicted data to illustrate mission activities. It gives you a sense of what things will look like from different vantage points, including the view from the spacecraft, from the surface, and more in real time. You can ride along with us to Gale Crater, in fact, using Eyes on the Solar System on your own computer by visiting eyes.nasa.gov. And then during entry, descent, and landing, we hope to have a real-time visualization, a simulation also based on telemetry from Curiosity via the Mars Odyssey orbiter. We have that displayed only if we have a communications link with Odyssey during landing. Even then, there may be data dropouts as Curiosity switches antennas during her different configurations. The screen will pause for just a short time with the last known state of the spacecraft, and you will also see the location and orientation of the vehicle and the velocity, altitude, and the amount of fuel on the descent stage on the dials that you see along the bottom, all reported in real time by the vehicle on its way to the surface. So there you have it. Two visualizations, one based on predicted information, and the other will only be available if we get that real-time telemetry from Odyssey. And one more time, let's go back to Alan, back in Mission Control.
The EDL activity lead right now is giving a briefing to the flight team on what to expect between now and through EDL. Shortly thereafter, I'll give a briefing to the team on what to expect from an EDL comm perspective, what kind of data we expect to see during EDL. So we can listen in right now to the activity lead.
This will result in the navigation filter not syncing to the cruise sensor data anymore, and the navigation filter will now propagate exclusively on the DEMU until the TDS is powered on and running. UHF will be powered on but not transmitting at this point. Following that, at 10:09 local time, the HRS bent anchor will execute. Here, the BCBs will be placed in manual mode in preparation for firing pyros and for completing EDL, so the charge vets will be off and the discharge vets will be on. Pyro firing cards will be powered on and the pyro bus will be armed. Cruise stage devices will be powered off, and the flight software will stop talking to the cruise PAMs, all in preparation for cruise stage up. The first set of pyros that we'll fire at this time will be the HRS vent pyros, and that will happen at 10:11 local time, so approximately 2 minutes after starting that anchor. 2 minutes following that, at 10:13 local time, we'll begin our preparations for cruise stage separation, where the communication system will be configured for X-band tones. So the following actions will be reported by the EDL ops via tones, where we'll initiate the descent stage thermal batteries, again by pyros, open up the power dead-based relays between the cruise stage descent and the rover, fire the PV1 and 2 pyros that enable the descent stage prop system. Following that, we'll do cruise stage separation by executing the pyro sequence that performs that. And from that point on, EDL ops will take over.
Okay, copy. We'll be on tones, and EDL ops, let's hear commentary on what we can expect to see from that point forward.
Okay, I'm just going to go over what we'll expect to see in real time. We have other data from other sources after landing, but I'll just go with what we see right now.
That's fine.
At about 11.5 minutes before entry, which is about 1.5 minutes before cruise stage SEP, that's when we'll lose telemetry and switch to tones. All we'll have is tones for the next 13 minutes or so. There may be a brief interruption in those tones around cruise stage separation, as the cruise stage may block the transmission of those tones from the spacecraft.
About a minute or two, minute and a half to 2 minutes or so past entry, we'll begin to pick up telemetry again through UHF, through Mars Odyssey. We should begin picking up that bent pipe. First, kind of ratty. We'll get, I think, sporadic coverage at first as we cross the received power threshold. It's an 8 kilobit per second stream, but remember, there's only 500 bits per second allocated to EH&A, and most of that will go to prop and thermal. So don't expect to see too much on your consoles. The vast majority of the stream is committed to EDL-specific data, which you'll see pop up in the EDL telemetry visualization and in the EDL perspectives. Note that there are many expected outages. First around acquisition when it's kind of ratty, then again around parachute deploy when we have high dynamic events. Also, we have times when we turn off the transmitter, times like backshell separation and rover separation, where we should expect to see outages. Odyssey requires a lock for us to have telemetry, so those outages may be prolonged until we relock up again. We will lose tones about 5 minutes after entry, somewhere around the time of heat shield separation or shortly thereafter. That occurs because Earth is setting from the spacecraft view. The relay UHF stream will continue all the way until touchdown plus 5 to 7 minutes or so. Remember, our touchdown time is variable by around plus or minus a minute, so the post-landing coverage time varies as well. It also depends a little bit on how close we are to the mound. The first replay of the EDL data collected by Odyssey will be around 0710 ERT. It shouldn't have any new content, but might be useful if there are any hiccups on the ground side during EDL.
Flight Telecom. Okay, copy EDL com and Flight Telecom. Yeah, Flight, we have reacquired. We've dropped our two-way and we've reacquired in one-way. Okay, copy one-way, and that also is commensurate with the conclusion of our last EDL com window shortly before that. So we are no longer getting packetized data at this time. All right, and our next anchor is the EDL start anchor.
Don't mess around.
At 0444. So standing by for about 5 minutes for that anchor to commence. And subsystems will be
We're about 45 minutes from entry. We're getting ready for the EDL start anchor in a few minutes. At that time, we'll enter what's called the EDL main mode, where the vehicle is going to do a whole bunch of things that will prepare us for EDL. Telecom has just confirmed that we've turned off the transmitter and that the vehicle is now sending back data in one way. So we're no longer two-way communications with Curiosity. So she's just talking to us. We're not talking to her anymore. We just conducted a couple of briefings to inform the flight team of what to expect over the next 45 minutes to an hour or so, both from what activities they're seeing, what monitors will trip on their stations, kind of alarms that might go off that are expected, and then also what to expect from an EDL-COM perspective in terms of what data we will actually get back in real time. So the team is prepared. They've heard this briefing a couple times. We just want to make sure that everyone remembers.
All right, we are about 40 minutes past the hour. We are less than an hour away from Curiosity's entry into the Martian atmosphere. That takes place at about 10:24 p.m. Pacific time. And what will that be like? Well, engineers here at JPL call it 7 minutes of terror, and here is why.
When people look at it, it looks crazy. That's a very natural thing. Sometimes when we look at it, it looks crazy. It is the result of reasoned engineering, thought, but it still looks crazy. From the top of the atmosphere down to the surface, it takes us 7 minutes. It takes 14 minutes or so for the signal from the spacecraft to make it to Earth. That's how far Mars is away from us. So when we first get word that we've touched the top of the atmosphere, the vehicle has been alive or dead on the surface. for at least 7 minutes.
Entry, descent, and landing, also known as EDL, is referred to as the 7 minutes of terror because we've got literally 7 minutes to get from the top of the atmosphere to the surface of Mars, going from 13,000 miles an hour to 0 in perfect sequence, perfect choreography, perfect timing, and the computer has to do it all by itself with no help from the ground. If any one thing doesn't work just right, it's game over.
We slam into the atmosphere and develop so much aerodynamic drag. Our heat shield, it heats up and it glows like the surface of the sun. 1,600 degrees.
During entry, the vehicle is not only slowing down violently through the atmosphere, but also we are guiding it like an airplane to be able to land in a very narrow, constrained space. This is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing, and one that we had never attempted on Mars.
Mars is actually really hard to slow down because it has just enough atmosphere that you have to deal with it. Otherwise, it will destroy your spacecraft. On the other hand, it doesn't have enough atmosphere to finish the job. We're still going about 1,000 miles an hour. So at that point, we use a parachute.
The parachute is the largest and strongest supersonic parachute that we've ever built to date. It has to be able to withstand 65,000 pounds of force, even though the parachute itself only weighs about 100 pounds.
When it opens up that fast, it's a neck-snapping 9 Gs.
At that point, we have to get that heat shield off. It's like a big lens cap blocking our view of the ground to the radar. The radar has to take just the right altitude and velocity measurements at just the right time, or the rest of the landing sequence won't work.
This big, huge parachute that we've got, it'll only slow us down to about 200 miles an hour. And that's not slow enough to land. So we have no choice, but we've got to cut it off and then come down in rockets. Once we turn those rocket motors on, if we don't do something, we're just going to smack right back into the parachute. So the first thing we do is make this really radical divert maneuver. We fly off to the side.
Diverting away from the parachute, killing our horizontal velocity and our vertical velocity, getting the rover moving straight up and down so it can look at the surface with its radars and see where we're going to land. And we head straight down to the bottom of a crater, right beside a 6-kilometer high mountain.
We can't get those rocket engines too close to the ground, because if we were to descend propulsively with our engines all the way to the ground, we would essentially create this massive dust cloud. That dust cloud could then go and land on the rover. It could damage mechanisms and it could damage instruments. So the way we solve that problem is by using the Skycram maneuver.
20 meters above the surface, we have to lower the rover below us on a tether that's 21 feet long, and then gently deposit it on its wheels on the surface.
As the rover touches down and is now on the ground, the descent stage is in a collision course with the rover. We must cut the bridle immediately and fly the descent stage to a safe distance from the rover.
That video was released about 5 weeks ago and immediately went viral. On YouTube alone, it has had over 2 million downloads. The video lays out the many things that have to go right in order to land. And if one thing goes wrong, the whole mission might be lost. With us right now is Adam Stelzner. He is the lead for entry, descent, and landing. And one of the things that folks probably should be aware of are the innovations that came out of having to land such a large rover on Mars. And I thought this would be a good time to talk about them.
Great. Well, Gaia, there are two big things that we do in EDL that are sort of new for Mars. The first, when we're entering, this is a model of the entry capsule. When we enter the Martian atmosphere, Usually we would have come in and just sort of hit the atmosphere squarely. But this time we have some extra weight on one side of the spacecraft, and that makes it fly at an angle of attack. And that angle of attack develops lift. And then we take that lift and we steer it back and forth, up and down, to steer our way through the atmosphere. What this allows us to do is it takes an uncertainty that we would have experienced in the landing footprint from hundreds of kilometers, at least 100 kilometers, and is able to shrink it down to 20 kilometers. This is something we need to do to land inside Gale Crater.
In that smaller ellipse.
In that smaller ellipse.
So you're able to slow yourself down. If the atmosphere is a certain way, you need to slow yourself down more or less.
That's right. If it had been a warm day, we might have a problem with flying too long. If it had been a cold day and the atmosphere were dense, we might slow down too fast and end up short. So this allows us to adjust for that atmospheric variation and adjust for variables at the entry point if we aren't navigated to the exact correct entry point.
All right, innovation number 2.
Innovation number 2 is the sky crane. Everybody notices that. It looks a little bit unusual. The sky crane really is composed of 2 pieces. We've got the rover and the descent stage. And 20 meters above the surface, these 2 things separate, and the descent stage and the rover together, connected by cables not shown here, slowly make their way down until the weight of the rover is taken up by the Martian terrain. When that's happened, the descent stage recognizes that the rover is no longer being held by it, cuts itself free, and flies away to a safe distance.
And that's the way we want to see it later tonight.
Flying away to safe distance and leaving Curiosity here with her wheels down on the surface, ready to begin her surface mission.
All right. Well, thanks for walking us through it. I know you are anxious to get back into that control room. So let's go back to Alan Chen right now.
Okay, we've just entered the EDL main mode. The vehicle's making irreversible preparations for EDL. There's no going back at this time. Cruise fault protection systems have been disabled. Those are the systems that kept us from doing things that we wouldn't want to do during cruise, things that wouldn't be safe. During EDL, we're about to do a whole lot of things that would be considered unsafe during cruise. It's also making some changes to the telecom system as well to prepare to send the EDL real-time data that we'd like to send. So far, so good. Everything looks nominal. The flight director will conduct a short poll to assess the spacecraft readiness upon completion of the actions. Sounds like he might have already. I might have missed it.
We're going to do a subsystem poll.
No, we're going to walk through the subsystems to make sure that we're happy at the completion of transition to EDL main. So we'll listen in for that.
And activity lead flight, let's go ahead and record telemetry.
I'll read it off to you. I feel like landing on Mars.
GDS flight.
Go ahead, flight.
Yeah, could you come have a look at the missions workstation, please?
Copy that.
Okay, at this time, the subsystems are taking a look at the data that's come down after these activities have been completed. They're just trying to make sure that everything's okay. Flight director will conduct a poll of all those subsystems to make sure that everything's going well. But so far, everything looks pretty good, and we'll check in very shortly with them.
My only suggestion was
Okay, fly EDL, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, so on step 715.6, the SCET time for the current anchor is 4:30:45.688. That was for predict.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
226 is fine.
Copy. 04
Yellow to purple.
30 45.688.
Okay, copy that.
For step 715.8, the next anchor time is 04 52 45.700.
Copy.
And then we can verify EVRs from steps 715.10
At this time, the activity lead is
through
verifying
715.34.
the actions that were completed during EDL main and going over when the next expected actions are.
We did verify a command no op in our EDL 200 sequence, so that executed successfully. So that's step 715.36. And in step 715.38, our spacecraft mode is indeed EDL main.
You may be able to see the flight director and mission and EDL activity lead checking off these steps and procedure. We just want to make sure that we get everything.
715.46, we did see all EDL devices marked healthy. For 715.47, we verified that we're in Windows disabled mode. And for 715.48, we verified that EVR.
Okay, copy. That confirms EDL start anchor activities are complete. Let's do a quick subsystem poll. Deltas only systems.
Flight systems changed the spacecraft mode. It's now EDL main. The new CBM background ID is EDL reserve TWNC. In terms of changes to the hardware configuration, the backup REPA is powered on, and the cruise stage cap heads are now powered off, and otherwise systems is nominal.
Copy that. Power.
Flight power, significant changes on the power configuration. As mentioned by systems, REPA Bravo is now on. We saw an increase in current of about 300 milliamps for that. Cat bed heaters on the cruise stage have been turned off. Our subsystem is nominal otherwise.
Copy. Thermal.
Flight, this is thermal. The Marty heater has been turned off as expected for EDL main. The only other state change for thermal is that soak back from the DRCS cat beds into the valves continues. The temperature on the warmest DRCS valve is about 34 C, which is just a couple degrees above the max set points.
Okay, copy. Prop.
Flight, this is Prop. We are nominal on the descent stage and cruise stage propulsion systems. The only change across EDL start anchor is the turn-off of B-side cat bed heaters as expected.
Roger. Avionics.
Flight avionics, there's no change in the avionics state, and we're still green across the board. Second Chance contingency software is now armed and ready to take over in the event of a prime computer reset.
Roger. Flight software.
Flight software is nominal. There is no change in flight software execution state across the EDL start anchor, and all flight software metrics are still per predict.
Copy. Fault.
Our only change is that all our system fault protection responses are now disabled.
Roger. Data management.
NTMX is nominal. The only change is we are now receiving only real-time data products.
227 OD.
Copy that. Telecom.
Telecom is nominal. The only change is the uplink transmitter has been turned off. Therefore, the uplink carrier lock is unlocked. We are in one-way non-coherent, and the coherency is disabled. And also the ranging is disabled on the SDST.
Roger. ACS.
ACS remains unchanged over the last anchor, and currently Mars is 38 degrees field of view.
Getting very big in the window. EDL activity lead. Anything else to add?
Nothing else to add, Flight.
Copy. Mission?
Nothing else, Flight.
Okay, copy. That completes our post-anchor poll.
Everything is good. Post-transition to EDL main, everything looks great.
EDL phase lead, I believe you have something to say.
Thank you, Flight.
Okay.
Thank you, Flight. I'd just like to thank the cruise team for bringing us over 350 million miles to unplanned
nav filter parameter changes, and one heck of a lot of professionalism and dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's. Curiosity is in fantastic shape to perform entry, descent, and landing, and she's there because you guys got her here. So thank you very much, and good luck. See you on the other side on Mars.
Roger. Thank you, EDL phase lead and mission.
Yeah, this is mission. On behalf of Brian and me and
And joining us now is John Grunsfeld. Dr. Grunsfeld is a physicist in charge of all of science projects at NASA. He's also a former astronaut who flew on 5 shuttle missions and made especially out of spacewalks to refurbish the Hubble on 3 of those. And Dr. Grunsfeld is here with us now. And here's your honorary bottle of peanuts. Good luck, peanuts, for today's mission.
Yep, we're going to need these.
Yes, we will. So let's talk a little bit about this mission and how does going to Mars again, why is that so important to NASA, and why do we need to go back to Mars?
Well, Mars has a very special place in our solar system as the closest analog to Earth. And so there's a couple of different ways. One is the science answer, which is because it's close analog, especially going to Gale Crater, we can understand the history of Mars, and I'm sure John Grotzinger has told us all about this, as if we were going down into the Grand Canyon and measuring, the geologic history. So we can compare the Earth to Mars at the same time as the solar system formed, as these planets formed. And of course, to answer the really important question, which is a human question, are we alone in the universe? And so, although the Curiosity rover isn't designed to look for life, it's look for signs of past habitability, and this will give us that answer. But it's one other thing is, we live in a solar system of riches. Jupiter, Saturn, the moons, the Earth, of course. Mars is the only place where someday, humans could live on a planet kind of like Earth. And so it gives us the vision of what might be the future.
So it's putting all the pieces together, and this is one of those pieces to build ourselves up to the next one, the bigger one.
That's right, the bigger one.
So we're going to take a break and tell you a little bit about the peanuts. And I don't know if you've seen what's going on in our control room here as well as in the MSA.
Well, I hear lots of munching.
There's a lot of munching, and we're going to let you partake here.
Thank you.
This is a tradition here at JPL. It goes way back to the Ranger days. And what had happened was we had 6 missions. They all failed, but we kept on trying and kept on trying. And then Ranger 7 did it. It was able to achieve what it was meant to do at the moon. And somebody was eating peanuts at that time. And somebody figured those must be good luck. So since then, on every mission, we dare mighty things by munching peanuts.
Yep. And of course, Ranger 7 set us up for Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to land on the moon.
That's right.
In the same way, I think Curiosity is going to set us up for a time where women and men in the not too distant future will land on the surface of Mars, and they'll be astrobiologists and geologists, and they'll be able to build on Curiosity's mission.
And you are a physicist, so what are you most looking forward to that Curiosity will discover?
The lessons from Hubble are that when Curiosity is roving and sending the data back to scientists on Earth, the biggest discovery is probably not going to be the one that is, some particular molecule that we're looking for in the rocks or a particular mineral. It's going to be something that nobody's ever thought of. It's going to be the real discovery space. And that's what I think Curiosity will give us.
So you don't even know what it might be?
Nobody knows what it'll be. And Mars has a history of surprising us that way.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'll let you go back in the control room.
Okay.
Go
Curiosity.
Go Curiosity.
Thank you.
And if you just joined us late, you're watching live coverage of the landing of the Curiosity rover on Mars from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. JPL is managed by the California Institute of Technology on behalf of NASA, and we will be back in a moment with Rob Manning, but we'll take a break first.
Okay, we're only 22 minutes to entry. Things are continuing to go well. You might have seen here that we've passed out the traditional peanuts. We need all the good luck we can get here. But things are continuing to look very good. We're right where we expect to be, and everything is going fine on the spacecraft. Curiosity is reporting things are going fine. Right now we're standing by for for Odyssey to tell us that they'll be around to broadcast what's going on for us during EDL, to relay that telemetry we get from Curiosity. So we're waiting for them to come back to Earth, to talking to Earth, and hopefully we'll be able to see all the way to the ground and past with Odyssey.
12 minutes. Now would have been better. Are you telling this guy to go and eat? We're going to do nickname for you? I'll never live that one. No. We might have made somebody
We are 3 minutes past the top of the hour, and with us right now is Rob Manning. He is the chief engineer for the entire Mars Science Laboratory mission. And everybody is still very conscious of this communications issue, whether or not we will know for sure if Curiosity landed okay, and we'll know it.
Yeah. Yes, well, we do have a fantastic, excuse me, I'm just finishing the peanuts.
He's eating peanuts.
Sorry. We have a fantastic array. We've got three spacecraft. Odyssey spacecraft flying overhead, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiters flying overhead. We even have Mars Express, European Mars Express overhead, as well as these tones that we're sending back to Earth directly. So I think we have a video.
We have a video, and maybe you can kind of walk people through it
to
understand
let's give it a try.
this. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so as MSL approaches the atmosphere, we'll first have a straight shot of Earth looking backwards from behind us. Earth is to the left of that view. The great thing is, as it's coming in, we have two orbiters. You'll see them come into view in just a second. First, MRO from the south working their way north, and this is about the time that MRO is recording information that MSL is sending out to the world. At the same time, Odyssey, which is coming in from the top part of the view, is listening to what MSL is doing. And right now, MSL is sending information through Odyssey, and Odyssey is repeating that information straight back to Earth. And that's what we're seeing in this room tonight.
And you see where Odyssey is, where it is on the horizon, and how far it is, and that's one of the reasons why we have a very narrow window of when we can.
Yeah. This is a pretty tricky dance. It's been very well choreographed. People like Brian Schratz have done a fantastic job of making sure that all the coordination is happening. But it's it's easy for this not to work. One of the problems is the antenna is moving around. It gets blocked by equipment as it falls apart, the vehicle comes apart. It is something that you can't rely on in a guaranteed sort of way. So if the signal stops, we stop getting signal, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong.
So we will know fairly soon in the next several minutes whether or not Odyssey's move did indeed work, and that it will be in position for us to be able to hear
That's
from.
right. Odyssey had to get into position, it had to stow its antenna, the one that goes back to Earth, turn the vehicle so it's pointing at our vehicle, and then restow the antenna and start transmitting. So what it hears from the rover, it can repeat back to Earth. But that process means that it had to stop talking to the Deep Space Network for a while while it was doing that. And that's happening right about now.
So the point is that people shouldn't get too excited if we don't hear from the rover
That's
landing?
right. We've had problems with communications all along. I mean, in fact, one of the reasons we put so much effort into this is so that if we do have a real problem, we can use this information to deduce what may have gone wrong. And so that's why this information is so essential. But if we don't get it and we land safely, that's still okay too, even though it's just nerve-wracking.
Okay, so Rob, we're going to keep you here while we go through entry, descent, and landing. He'll be there to give us his wise knowledge in all of this. But meantime, let's go back into the MSA and get ready for entry, descent, and landing.
Things are looking pretty good right now. I'm getting a report right now from Odyssey that they're in position. They're going to be there for us for EDL. So they have reacquired to the Earth, and we're good to go. So we will have coverage throughout EDL, through a little bit from about a minute and a half after entry, through touchdown, and then some. So hopefully we'll see all the way to the bottom and see a successful landing. Okay. The EDL activity lead is about to narrate what's going on in the spacecraft. We're entering the EDL prep anchor. That's a EDL flight software mode, so let's listen in.
You can see that the nav filter is dropping to the correct state. IBP has stopped, and the EDL prep anchor is complete.
Okay, copy that.
So we're about 3 minutes from the HR spent anchor action starting.
The EDL activity lead has told us that we've turned off the attitude control system, the cruise attitude control system. We don't need it anymore. We're standing by for heat rejection system vent. That's the coolant that's been keeping us cool through all of cruise. We'll vent that ahead of cutting the cruise stage. So we're coming up on cruise stage separation.
Go ahead, Phase.
Anytime you guys want to shoot me any results from Ms. Sims to me via email, I guess is the way we're going to go now, because the screens are going to transition into having your beautiful faces on it instead of your estimates from the
flight EDL. The EDL HR spent actions have begun.
Roger.
Phase, we should have our EDL viz on there when we get UHF data.
Roger. I'm still open for receiving best estimates as they come in on the landing location off of the time point correlation.
Copy, I understand, and we are on it. You will get it in the usual communication window.
Flight EDL. The expected warnings for the Electra hail mode are received.
Copy.
The EDL team is running some final simulations to show where we think we're going to end up based on the latest navigation data. Things continue to look good. It puts us right in the middle of the ellipse.
Okay, flight, we can confirm the BCB actions have been commanded, and through EHA we can confirm that the discharge beds are now in manual discharge.
The vehicle power changes in preparation for cruise stage separation. It's going to cut loose the cruise stage and all that solar array that's been powering us through all of cruise.
Pyro firing cards are now powered on.
Go ahead, EDLCom.
So we're ready to switch the displays over to the 1010 marker, which will show EDL data manual tones. You ready?
Standby 1. Yes, we are ready.
Copy that.
All right. And we can confirm through EHA now that the BCBs are in manual charge mode.
Copy. BCBs in manual charge.
We've also completed enabling the pyros commands. We are in the process of powering off the cruise stage hardware. And we can verify through telemetry that the cruise stage hardware is powering off.
Yeah, the cruise stage is turned off.
Flight, Pyro bus is armed.
Copy, thank you, Pyro.
And enabled.
Pyro electronics that are used to activate many of the devices that are going to be used to cut the cruise stage, and a lot of the separation events during EDL have been armed. Nav is confirming that we are starting venting. HRS vent has started.
And flight EDL, we're firing our first pyros to vent the HRS system. The medley RTDP warnings are expected.
The navigation team can see that the fluid coming out of that heat rejection system is actually pushing the vehicle a little bit, as expected, so we can confirm that the vent is actually happening.
Odyssey Com, Odyssey Mission Manager on EDL Ops.
EDLCom, this is Dynamics on EDL Ops.
Go ahead, Dynamics.
Is our display configured correctly for you in the MSA?
Affirmative. I see it. Waiting for X-band tones. Very nice picture. And we're expecting tone start at 5:13:17 UTC.
Copy.
We're under 2 minutes from cruise stage separation.
Odyssey Com, Odyssey Mission Manager on EDL Ops.
Odyssey Mission Manager, this is EDL Ops on EDL Ops.
Odyssey has completed its salute of the EDLCom attitude. All systems are nominal. Odyssey is go for EDLCom support.
Great to hear from you. Thank you very much.
We have a cruise stage step about to happen.
For all of EDL, so we will have their coverage. Things are looking good for them, and they're looking good for us. We're about 1 minute to cruise stage separation.
Tones.
We're seeing the transition to tones now. The system should be configured shortly. And we're seeing carrier only.
The vehicle's changing to tones at this time. So we're switching from telemetry. We lost telemetry, and we're going to move to just tones.
EDA acquisition. And we're seeing heartbeat.
We are receiving heartbeat tones at this time.
Affirmative, we're seeing the expected 2 seconds of heartbeat, followed by the 10-second carrier pulse.
NAV can see something that could be consistent with cruise stage separation in the Doppler.
And we're showing a good strong signal, higher than expected carrier power, and continuing seeing heartbeats. EDLCom tones look good.
We are receiving heartbeat tones at this time. Things are looking good. You see that we are priming the entry RCS thrusters. Cruise stage separation. In about 1 minute, Curiosity's EDL software will wake up and begin final preparations for entry. The first action it'll take is to fire some warm-up pulses to get the entry RCS thrusters going. The pulses will ensure the spacecraft will get the thrust that we want when it's counting on it.
We did see the heartbeat signal drop low for a second as the signal passed by the donut of the cruise stage.
We are seeing RCS warm up.
Flight, this is NAV.
Yeah, flight, go ahead.
Could you check with the ACE whether we should be seeing one-way data from the station?
ACE, did you copy?
Curiosity is reporting that it is spinning down and turning to entry.
Flight HS, we've been one way for a while now. Roger that. But currently we're just seeing the tones, obviously. Roger.
Vehicle's reporting that it has completed its turn to entry and spin down, and it has separated the cruise balance mass devices. At this time, the vehicle's just sending heartbeat tones, just as we expect. It should be quiet for the next several minutes, hopefully. We are about 7 minutes to entry. At this time, Mars is actually pulling Curiosity in, and we're speeding up. We should be traveling around 5.4 kilometers per second on our way to about 5.9.
So, Rob, what are your thoughts at this point?
Well, I'm very
variation
excited.
in the pattern, antenna pattern is
This is
reflected
the,
in the variation in the signal.
this is the part that really is entry. This is where we're getting to the top of the atmosphere. The great thing is that the propulsion system's shown to be working. We're turning the vehicle. It looks like the vehicle is going to be doing its entry job very well, and I'm very excited about that. Everything is going very well.
Right.
So make sure everyone keeps their eyes on the television, because we might actually get some pictures if all goes well, and we might be murky and covered with dust when we first land. But we might get some pictures today.
Wow. At landing.
Just a few minutes after landing.
Excellent. Okay, we're standing by.
Thank you.
We're just under 6 minutes to entry. We're continuing to wait for entry interface. The spacecraft is continuing to send heartbeat tones, telling us that everything is okay and there's nothing significant to report. This is as expected. It should be quiet for a little while, at least. We're now 5 minutes to entry. Continuing to receive heartbeat tones. Everything is good. At this time, Curiosity should be up to about 5.5 kilometers per second.
So what's taking place now?
So right now the vehicle's flying through space. It's actually in deep space still. In fact, not until after we hit the entry point will we actually begin to feel the force of the atmosphere gradually building on that heat shield. So really it's still a spacecraft. It hasn't actually become an aircraft. But we've checked out its rockets. It's actually used to turn the vehicle. It's turned to the right attitude. And that means it's ready to go. And as soon as we start feeling the atmosphere, it'll start doing its role to get to the turn as part of the guidance that it does. It starts off with a right bank, and eventually will make a left bank, and then make another right bank as it makes its way to the landing site.
So it's a capsule right now.
It's a capsule. It's just a bare capsule. Nothing looking out. Just the radios is the only thing that's sticking out, and that's what we're getting. We're getting tones from that vehicle right this second.
Okay.
Now we're not getting Odyssey data yet. That doesn't happen until a little while later.
After parachute.
Actually, just after entry, about the time before parachute, just before parachute opens up.
Okay.
EDL phase dynamics.
Did that work out?
Go ahead, Dynamics.
Just FYI, OD227 runout looks like missed distance of 232 meters. Over.
232 meters?
That's correct. Less than the divert.
Roger.
We can expect a brief signal dropout when we switch to the TLJ.
We're at 3 minutes to entry. At this time, MRO should begin picking us up. But remember, we won't get that data for a while. It's got to store it and then send it back down here for us to decode. We're still seeing heartbeat tones. Everything looks good. The spacecraft should be up to 5.6 kilometers per second.
We have 228. It's right on top of 227. See that? No.
2 minutes to entry.
The EDL team is reporting that the latest runouts, which is using the latest nav, our best guess of where we are, show us that the best guess of our landing target location is about 232 meters from the landing target. So looking good so far. We're continuing to receive heartbeat tones. Everything looks good. We're about 90 seconds from entry.
Flight dynamics EDL phase.
Go ahead, phase.
That last solution was with 227 or OD 228?
That is OD 227.
Thank you. You guys have now OD 228 in your possession?
There will be no 228 for us, phase.
That's just fine because the difference is
1 minute to entry.
within spitting distance.
Affirmative.
The vehicle will switch antennas shortly. We'll have a short dropout when that occurs in the tones. It's switching to a tilted antenna that will be used through entry.
As
30 seconds to entry.
As we come up on entry, we'll expect a 2 or 3 second outage in the X-band signal as we switch from the ELGA to the TLGA.
We're switching to the TLJ. Signal's dropped. And it's
We just saw the signal drop. That indicates we changed antennas.
We're seeing heartbeat tones again after the switch. Things are looking good. We got tones back again. Coming up on entry. Vehicle reports entry interface. At this time, it'll begin pressurizing the propulsion system to increase the thrust of the system. It'll use that for all the maneuvering in the atmosphere we're about to do.
Back to heartbeat tones.
We are standing by for guided start and the start of guided entry.
Nav can see the entry in the atmosphere in the Doppler.
We are beginning to feel the atmosphere as we go in here. The vehicle has just reported via tones that it has started guided entry. At this time, the vehicle is beginning to steer its way to the target. It is starting its first bank reversal. First bank reversal complete. We have seen peak deceleration. We've passed through peak heating and peak deceleration. It is reporting that we are seeing Gs on the order of 11 to 12 Earth Gs.
Flight GDSA.
GDSA flight go.
We are processing data from Odyssey.
Bank reversal 2 is starting. We are now getting telemetry from Odyssey.
All right.
Bank reversal 2 complete.
Copy. Bank reversal 2 complete.
Thanks.
Standby flight. We have a connection, but we actually do not have any data yet.
Copy. We can expect some intermittent contact at this time as the signal increases to respectable levels.
There we go. We are now seeing
and we have RTDPs.
Okay, copy.
And visualization is updated.
They've entered heading alignment.
There we go.
At this time, Curiosity is no longer trying to control how far it's flying downrange and is just heading directly for the target.
End of range control, air used minus 1.2 kilometers.
Minus 1.2.
1.2.
The EL team is reporting that that things look pretty good at the end of range control. We have converged a lot of the error, and we should be heading toward the target.
Flight EDL, TDS warning is okay.
Copy.
Power on.
We are seeing a tone from indicating that we have seen heating on the heat shield through the MEBD instrument. Everything looks fine. This is as expected. During the setting alignment phase, we're flying almost horizontally like a plane. We're going about Mach 2.4 at an altitude of 17 kilometers or so. Vehicle's reporting heartbeat tones again, indicating that everything is fine during heading alignments. We are standing by for straighten up and fly right and parachute deploy. Vehicle's continuing to decelerate. We're down to about Mach 2. As a reminder, we should have parachute deploy around Mach 1.7. We're at 15 kilometers altitude.
We've begun entry balance mass jettison. The predicted mid distance downrange is 1.597 kilometers.
EDL Ops, Odyssey Systems on EDL Ops.
Parachute deploy.
Parachute.
Thrusters have been re-enabled. We will control our attitude on shoot. We are decelerating.
Wrist mode under
our 10 kilometers
parachute
decelerated
are
and descending. We are at 150 meters per second.
Dynamics phase. Come back again with wrist mode dynamics.
Wrist mode is nominal.
We are 9 kilometers and descending.
Active.
Valid range.
Net filter converged with a velocity correction of 0.7 meters a second.
We've acquired the ground with the radar.
An altitude of 8 kilometers.
Speed shield has separated. We've found the ground.
Expand tones due to earth occultation as expected.
We're standing by to prime the MLE engines in preparation for powered flight. We're down to 90 meters per second at an altitude of 6.5 kilometers and descending.
Flight EDL, we got some Tweedo warnings. It is in battle short mode, so I should power through them.
Direct to Earth communications at this time. We may have lost it already. We're down to 86 meters per second at an altitude of 4 kilometers and descending. We've lost tones from Earth at this time. This is expected. We're continuing on Odyssey telemetry.
Ground solution equals minus 10.8 meters, vertical velocity of minus 82.8 meters per second.
Start enabled, standing by for backshell separation.
Signal to Odyssey is still strong.
We are in powered flight. We're at altitude of 1 kilometer descending, about 70 meters per second.
Signal to Odyssey remains
down to 50 meters per second, 500 meters in altitude. Standing by for sky crane.
Constant velocity accordion nominal. Altitude error 5.9 meters.
We found a nice flat place. We're coming in ready for sky crane. Down to 10 meters per second, 40 meters altitude. Sky crane has started. Descending at about 0.75 meters per second as expected. Expecting bridle cut shortly.
Signal to Odyssey remains strong.
Tango Delta nominal.
Yep. EDL com configured.
Rim stable.
UHF telemetry.
Rim stable.
UHF is good.
Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
Time to see where our curiosity will take us.
At this time, flyaway should be complete. Descent stages at a safe distance. We are continuing to receive telemetry from Curiosity. We're safe.
Getting data from the surface of Mars.
ASCAM sequence is kicked off, waiting for images.
Heads up, folks. EDL ops, the signal to Odyssey remains strong.
Flight EDL images are starting to come down. We're beginning to get images
we got images
from Odyssey.
coming down, folks.
EDL com configures
Stand by for images.
Rear has
Seeing
cam
thumbnails coming down.
Odyssey data is still strong.
Odyssey data is very strong.
Odyssey is nice and high in the sky. At this time, we're standing by for images.
Thumbnails are complete. Got thumbnails.
Full image complete.
It's the wheel. It's the wheel.
There we go. We can see a wheeled image. We are wheels down on Mars.
Oh my God. We'll do a proper hug on the other side.
Keep watching, guys. Keep watching the screen. There's more stuff. Any minute now. No. 2:56.
Okay, okay. So here we are. We're going to start. Go ahead.
Okay.
So we have landed at the time we thought we would, and we now have our first image.
We have our first image. We've got us a 64 by 64 thumbnail. The front, a rear has-cam image. You can see the shadow there. I'm not sure exactly which our orientation is of the vehicle, but we're looking through it. Now, I think in just a few minutes we might get even a larger 256 frame pixel image of that same end. So we're looking at the shadow. See, the horizon is actually in the distance. You can't really tell that. So we're looking actually at the shadow of this late afternoon sun.
So these are the rear has cams.
These are the rear has cams.
And it does have a dust cover on it.
It does have a dust cover, but it's the dust. The cover is a problem. It's the fact there's dust in the air because we've just blown dust all over the place with our descent engines.
Fantastic. So there could be more.
There could be more. If we wait, we might get, oh yes!
Ah!
This is the high res, this is the 256 by 256 image. This is a higher resolution. You're seeing dust particles on the window. You can see the horizon there in the background. And there is the wheel of the rover safely on the surface of Mars. I can't believe it. This is unbelievable. We might get another one of these, and if we're lucky, before Odyssey goes away, we'll get 2 more of these same images going the other side of the vehicle, and also probably dusty. This is amazing.
So that is one of Curiosity's rover wheels
exactly.
on the surface of Mars.
Yes. Whoa! Wow! Now we have another. Is another image coming down? This is a view looking the other direction. It's still being processed. You'll see it in just a second here. This is another thumbnail image.
Is that a shadow?
That's the shadow
of the rover.
Curiosity rover on the surface of Mars. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Odyssey transition is about to end. It's about to set below the peak of Mount Sharp very shortly. So this is about all the data we're going to get, but things look great.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Time to see where our Curiosity will take us.
anybody in the MSA is listening, you should check out our target location on this current fly-through. If anyone in the MSA is online, you should watch this fly-through.